Okay, welcome to the podcast. We're here tonight with Prosecutor from the Essendon board. Welcome, Prosecutor.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and look forward to talking about all things Collingwood and Essendon.
Great, and we also have one of our regular guests, Magpie Girl. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, 76, and hello, Prosecutor.
Hello to you too.
Okay, so it's quite timely that the Collingwood Football Club are playing Essendon this week, and we've got a bit of an elephant in the room, which let's just talk about that one. There's been a few developments in the Asada investigation in the last few days. Prosecutor, are you able to give us a bit of an update on what's going on there?
Yes, obviously over the weekend we had the resignation of David Evans from the Essendon Football Club, who was our president for about 3 or 4 years and has seen the rise of the Essendon Football Club during that time period. Also coming out of that, we had some leaked text messages from Her to Dank, which Heard implicated Collingwood in their supplement program potentially having HDH. Since the interview with Dean Robinson on Wednesday night, however, the football club has denied any such allegations on Essendon's behalf. And so Collingwood and West Coast Hawthorn as well have refuted any illegalities in their supplement program. So as it stands, we're due to have the Asada report given to the club and the AFL on Monday, we're led to believe. And then when it becomes public, that could be another week or two, or maybe never, potentially.
Okay, so what result are you expecting?
I think that's a bit hard to kind of give an answer to right at this point, because there's so much we don't know and we can only speculate on. At the very least, obviously, there'll be a fine coming our way under the very broad bringing the game into disrepute rule. Apart from that, I'm fairly confident that draft picks will be sanctioned. And then the real sticking issue becomes losing premiership points and obviously James Hird and what happens with him. But, I mean, there are issues you can't really speculate on with any, great accuracy until this report comes out and you can actually establish some clear and precise facts as to what happened, who's responsible, and so forth.
Yeah, it's a dreadful situation, and I think, obviously the Essendon Football Club is copping a bit of flack at the moment, and perhaps that might be justified. We'll find out soon enough, hopefully. But what's been really unfortunate about all of this is seeing the Essendon fans, copping it tough. Realistically, look, this could have happened to any club. None of our supporters really know what goes on behind the scenes of our footy club. We assume that they're well run. Whether they are or they aren't, we still support our club. And, hey, you've got to wonder if this can happen to Essendon. Certainly what they've gone through up until this stage of 2013, realistically, this could happen at any club. And, look, certainly my hope is that it's sorted out as quickly as possible. Really hope that that Essendon have no case to answer and that the integrity of the game is maintained and that we all go back to focusing on the game of footy again. I think that would be the best result for football. So let's see what happens in the next few weeks. All the best, Prosecutor. I hope it turns out well for you.
So do I. Thank you.
Yeah. I just think, just to add to that, I think it must have been so hard, or continues to be really hard for all the Essendon supporters. Each week seeing your team doing really well, and on the other hand, you just don't know what's going to happen. So just to hang in there and keep following them takes a lot of loyalty, and I think you're all doing a great job.
I think it's an interesting case as well, where people are very harsh on Essendon supporters being, in denial and not being able to really get their head out of the sands. But it's one of those things where I think if it was any other club, it'd be the same sort of thing as well, especially in a case like this where so little facts and so much media speculation is rife, that you naturally defend the club until, they're shown specifically that they shouldn't. And I think that's one element of this that is really frustrating for Essendon supporters, is that they're labelled and branded and all that sort of stuff for just simply defending their club. Or not even defending their club, just, sticking up for the right of due process and all that sort of stuff. And I have no doubt, though, that Essendon supporters in the same position, as in just say if Carlton was in the same position we're in currently, that Essendon supporters would be giving it to them. That's just the nature of football, and so as much as we might seem hypocritical, I mean it's the same for any club. There'll be the supporters will always really, that core supporter base is always going to remain loyal, and I mean for people who point to posters on BigFooty and Bomber Blitz, for instance. Well, they're always going to be loyal because, I mean, they're the hardcore base who actually go on to seek discussion online with, fellow supporters and all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, defence is natural, and I think it's disappointing that opposition supporters are upset about Essendon supporters not joining the witch hunt, I guess. But it's to be expected, and I reckon if they were in the same position, it'd be a similar outcome.
Now, Magpie Girl, you've been on the Collingwood board and canvassed some questions from the posters about this weekend's game. What have you come up with?
Okay. Well, a couple of good questions there. Who's going to be the better player, Carlisle or Hurley?
Well, it's an interesting one, and if we've both got different strengths and a couple of different weaknesses, with if I was to say right now on the spot, I'd say Jake Carlisle is the most likely to have the better career. And I think that's mainly down to his ability to take a big contested mark and to have the hands out and actually mark a ball overhead. It's unfortunate with Hurley because his career's been hampered in a sense because he's had a reoccurring scaphoid injury. And I think anyone who's had a scaphoid injury or knows about them will tell you that they are some of the worst injuries to get because they never fully heal. And
can you tell those of us that are uneducated, such as myself, what the scaphoid is?
Scaphoid's in your hand. It's a bone. I'm pretty sure it's near the bottom of the hand, around his near the wrists.
So it's the hand equivalent to the metatarsals.
Not really, because that's the finger bones, but more the wrist is in around there. So pretty much, so you'll see things like marking the ball and all that sort of stuff. He has no confidence in that, and I mean, because Hurley has end of season surgery, and you'll see his wrists every year, and you'll see his wrists. He won't play this week, obviously, but if you ever watch Hurley, on all occasions, you'll see his wrists are always strapped and all that sort of stuff, and it's a pain because it's such the bone's very hard to heal fully, so it's very easy to re-aggravate the injury, and that's what Hurley's probably got right at the moment. And it's going to be an ongoing issue for the rest of his career. So a big portion of whether Hurley's going to reach his potential is down to how he deals with that. But, I mean, there's also the interesting thing with Carlisle and Hurley where Carlisle could potentially be a better forward and Hurley be a better back. But as it stands, they're currently in the opposite position. So there's a lot of factors at play to who will be better.
Now, we always like to ask our guests from the other team, if you were Buckley, who would you be giving special attention to this week?
Well, I was talking earlier to 76 and he raised Marty Clark on Stanton last year. However, Stanton, who has in the past been the target of taggers, has actually lost that mantle in recent times, especially with Joe Watson out. It's been surprisingly Dyson Heppel has actually attracted that attention. And I think that's really insightful from opposition coaches because I think Heppel is now our second best midfielder. He's been compared a lot to Scott Pendlebury in his... Because Scott Pendlebury has that sort of zen-like ability to win a clearance, but not in the same way that a Joe Watson or a Sam Mitchell does by just smashing in there, but he's able to read the ball and just glide in and get it. I think Heppel really has that sort of Pendlebury-like ability to, slow down the play, read the ball, and actually get the ball rather as opposed to being that rough and tough player. So I think Heppel also is susceptible to the tag at this point in his career. So I think Heppel will be the one I'd be focusing on, especially if Joe coming back and being rusty. I think if you can get Heppel down, and then our clearances will probably be well down as well, and then you'd have first use of the ball.
I'm surprised you haven't.
From a Collingwood side in the midfield, I think Pendlebury has traditionally attracted taggers in the past. He's not having the best of seasons so far, and that's sort of really starting to grab the attention of the people watching the games. And Swan really seems to be working his form up towards the end of the season. So,
he knows he's got an Essendon game this week. I don't know how that guy does it, but anytime he plays Essendon, it's just, write him down for 40 touches, a couple of goals, and 10 clearances.
That's Pendlebury or Swan?
Swan.
Yeah.
He has, although, having said that, Pendlebury hasn't been much worse, so...
Yeah.
It's pretty much, tag one and get destroyed by the other, especially when you play Essendon for some reason. So,
I do believe Pendlebury grew up as a Essendon supporter, so I don't know if there's anything in that.
Well, he's welcome back any time.
No, you can't have him.
But somebody to sort of
go on.
Somebody to really look out for is Dane Beams. He'll be in his third game back, from a pretty much long-term injury. It'll be third game for the season. And he did reasonably well last week, and I think we can expect a breakout game for him this week.
Well, I believe he's another boy who was an Essendon supporter as a junior, from memory. I remember reading his draft profile, actually. But in any case, I said before, if one doesn't get you, the other one will. Well, you've got Dan Beams now back in the side, and that just adds another layer of threats. So, if I was in James Hurd's position, I'd be tagging Dane Swan based on past performances, but definitely I'd be paying close attention to Beams and Pendlebury, and especially with Beams, because if he starts getting on top, then he will destroy us. So,
yeah. All right, so we've had a brief chat about the midfield and the players to watch out for on Sundays during Sunday's game. Let's have a bit more chat about the game in general. So first up, let's have a chat about the rucking situation. So from a Collingwood point of view, we had Brodie Grundy have his debut game last week against GWS, and Magpie Girl, you were at the game. What did you think of Grundy's game?
Well, I thought he played pretty well. He seemed to tire in the last quarter, which I guess is to be expected. He must find running around the G a lot more taxing than running around Vic Park. But he was... I certainly enjoy watching him more than I do Wits. It's good to he's got a good leap. His timing.
That is Grundy's got the good leap.
Yeah. Well, I've yet to see Wits get off the ground. So,
he's so tall, though, that he doesn't really need to.
Well, I think that's part of the problem. He just sort of puts his hand up in the air and expects to tap the ball away. But whereas Grundy does have quite a big leap, but still seems to miss the ball a lot. So he's just kind of getting it all together. But he's very promising, and I enjoyed watching him.
So let's have a chat about Essendon's rucking outfit.
Essendon, well, it's become one of our strengths, really. We're really lucky to have players of the calibre of Ryder and Bellchambers in there. And I guess we've had the problem too where they'd be quality first ruckmen pretty much in most teams in the league, but obviously they're in the one team, so they can really take away from each other at their time in the midfield and in the ruck. But Paddy Ryder generally has been favoured to be our first ruckman, and obviously he's more of an athletic type. He hasn't been outstanding in recent weeks, but he's definitely moulded a consistency as opposed to, well, from 2011 and before. And Bellchambers has really come on as a ruckman who can play forward. I've got the goal table up at the moment. He's kicked 22 for this year. And to give you a comparison of other ruckmen in the league, Mike Piker's got 20, and then the next highest for ruckman in the top 20 hitouts is Cox with 12. Right. And then from under there, and Jonathan Giles is the only other ruckman who's got double-figure goals. So it really shows just how prolific Bellchambers has been, and it's definitely going to be one of those strengths that we have to take advantage on Sunday if we really want to walk away with the 4 points. Because
Absolutely.
because Grundy and Witts are no doubt ruckman for the future. The question is, are they ruckman for the now, especially when you're coming up against a team of Ryder and Bellchambers? And Essendon really do have to capitalise on that. I reckon, because Witts and Grundy are fantastic kids, and I reckon they'll relish the challenge, should Witts play, that is. But as an Essendon supporter, I'd back Ryder and Bellchambers to win that comfortably.
Oh, absolutely. And recently it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, Collingwood were rated 18th in terms of hit-outs in competition-wide. So we don't really have high expectations of our ruck performance this week. But look, as you say, it'll be a great learning experience for our young ruckmen. And look, let's see how they do.
We'll put it this way. I'm be very happy as an Essendon supporter to take every ruck win we can get while those Collingwood players develop, because in a few years' time, they're going to be a very good combination.
Well, we look forward to that too. Okay, so on to the forward lines. Now, we've spoken briefly about Collingwood's forward line and some of our woes, and look, we haven't even hit the tip of the iceberg yet. But can you just let us know what's going on with Essendon's forward line this year?
I wish I could answer that, but I don't think anyone has really any idea. It's one of those ones where we're a fantastic team at getting inside 50s. In fact, we rank third, just 2 behind the leader in Geelong per game. But we have a terrible inability to capitalise in our forward 50. We've gotten away with it a bit this year through the sheer amount of goals that our midfield and Tom Bellchambers have managed to kick. But, I mean, our leading goal kicker, I think, Stuart Cramery, and he has maybe 24. I think that really shows that we don't have a genuine star forward at the moment. Hopefully Danaher will be that in a couple of years, but at the moment it means that we don't have that figurehead up forward who can actually kick a bag of goals like a Cloak can. And, if our midfield shut down, then we get really hurt by that. So at the moment we need to find a structure that actually works. We need a goal kicker who can kick his, 2 or 3 goals a game on average and, comfortably get that 60-goal range. But at the moment, we're struggling with that, and it's a real big concern, actually, for Essendon, especially with no Danaher, no Hurley this week, and no Cramery as well.
Magpie Girl, does that sound familiar at all?
Yes, very. In fact, I was just going to ask, is that something that you aim to be rectifying in the draft or trade or something at the end of the year?
As I said, we've got Danaher coming through, and we've seen enough of him in the AFL, or in one of his games at least, against the Gold Coast, and in the VFL, because, there was a game against Collingwood where Danaher was particularly dominant, but we've seen enough of him to know that he will in the future be a key forward that we can build a side around. The problem is we've got a lot of other players who could potentially be a star forward, such as Hurley and Carlisle. But we need them in other places, or they're not playing in the natural position when they do play forward. So it's an interesting one. I don't think the draft is the answer. I think what we've got's the answer, but I just think we have to get that structure right first. If anything, what Essendon really need in the forward line sense is a small forward, a quality one.
Oh, we've got a few of those.
We
but
do.
I mean, because at the moment we really don't have a prolific one, and as much as because I think we have a mutual hatred of Carlton, I don't think it'd be nice not to trade with him. But if you could get one of those small forwards for Essendon, it'd be fantastic for the structure of the side. Because at the moment we're really lacking in one, and we don't really have that crumbing ability. So there's a few problems with the forward line, and some of them, the only fix is time. But we've also got to find a structure that works, and at the moment we haven't really found that.
Okay, so that's the wrap up of Sunday's game. It's a twilight game, 4:40 in the afternoon.
Not on free to air.
No.
It's surprising. Very surprising. I think it was one of your posters had its back up. I think it was the distributor, was it?
Could have been.
Something like that about about this game in particular being on a twilight and not having the free-to-air coverage. But all that is more motivation for supporters to get along from both sides. So hopefully they can pack out the MCG and it'll be quite a spectacle. I think it's going to be a very close game.
Absolutely. And just on that, what are your thoughts on the behaviour of the crowd this Sunday? There's been some talk about, Collingwood reacting to the Asada scandal and, perhaps the supporters or some of the Collingwood fans, giving the Essendon fans a bit of a roasting.
Yep.
We discussed this earlier. What are your thoughts on that?
I think in general, I don't think it'll be any worse from the Collingwood supporters than previously, such as the West Coast Eagles and Hawthorn. However, I think the problem is that with an issue such as this that has been going on for so long, there's been a feeling amongst Essendon supporters that tensions have been building, and that there might just get a point where the supporters just have enough. And by that, I mean, there could be violent incidents and stuff like that. It's unfortunate. I don't expect anything worse from Collingwood, as in I don't expect them to be any worse than any other crowd. But the worry is that, Essendon supporters just, might have just had enough, and it might be this week, it might be a couple of weeks into the future. And I guess the important thing is to remember, though, that Essendon supporters in this are innocent. I mean, no matter what the club has or hasn't done, the supporters had nothing to do with it. And I guess it's one of those things where it's like a family, where a family member does something and screws up. Your family, you stand by them and all that sort of stuff. And I think, there's just, we haven't done anything and all that sort of stuff. So by all means, have a hatred of the club and the players if you want, but just bear in mind too, when you're engaging with supporters, that this is a difficult issue, and it's no fault of theirs as well. So hopefully we can have a nice jovial banter in the crowd and things don't get out of control.
Yeah, hopefully the fans do focus on what's happening on the ground on Sunday, because really that's ultimately why both teams are there, to play a game of footy.
Exactly, and if you take it too far, the only person you're going to ruin is yourself, because you're going to miss out on the game you've paid money for, and you get to miss out on the spectacle. So go there and enjoy the game, and that's for both set of supporters. And in general, not just for this week, for every game. I mean, you're there to enjoy the game. If you're going there to annoy other crowd members, I mean, what's the point?
Yeah.
Stick to BigFooty.
Okay. All right, so we're on to the quick questions segment of the podcast. And we've got a series of questions here tonight. Where do you see Essendon at the end of the home and away season?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I hope Essendon have a second chance at the finals as well, because hopefully it'll be fourth is the likely sort of thing, because I think Fremantle, especially if they win this Saturday, will finish third due to their run home, which is fantastic for them. Essendon will be fourth, and I'd say at worst fifth.
Who do you play in the last few rounds?
See, this has been a really good... our last 6 weeks have been all against rivals, and I guess, in a sense. We had Hawthorn last week, Collingwood this week, West Coast next week at Etihad, North Melbourne at Etihad, and then we finish with Carlton and Richmond at the MCG. So there's a lot of games there. Well, from this week out, it's either 50-50 or better for Essendon, but the fact is we play those teams who... you guys know what it's like in a sort of Collingwood, Carlton, Essendon game where, form goes out the window. And so, we'll be hoping to win most of them, but there's the chance that we won't. Obviously, we'll drop 1 or 2. So I'd say fifth is probably most likely, though depending on what Sydney do, if they lose to both Geelong and Hawthorn in the last 2 rounds, then, fourth might open up to us. But definitely, I'd say fifth at worst.
Okay. Do you agree with that, Magpie Girl? Fifth for Essendon?
Yeah, well, you'd expect them to beat West Coast and North Melbourne. Yeah, in fact, you'd expect them to beat all of those teams, really. Carlton maybe give you a hard time. Actually, the Richmond one should be interesting by then.
Yeah, that'll be a fantastic game in round 23, and hopefully, there's a lot to play for. Because that would be a fantastic spectacle on the Saturday night. It might even be a preview for the week 1 of the finals.
Okay, so quick question number 2. Magpie Girl, who do you think will take 8th position on the ladder at the end of the home and away season?
Well, hopefully not us. I hope we're 7th. I think it's more likely to be Port Adelaide. Judging on, I think they've got a slightly easier run than Carlton, who's the other team pushing for it. And I think they play each other in the last round. So,
yeah, we mentioned the Essendon Richmond game being a spectacle. Well, the Carlton Port Adelaide game could be, very enthralling, considering they could be a playoff for 8th spot.
Yeah, I don't know where they're playing. Whether it's
at Amy Stadium.
Oh, okay. So they really do have a good chance of that. So I'll go Port Adelaide.
Prosecutor, who's going to take 8th position?
We did a run home ladder predictor on the main board podcast this week, and it ended up being Carlton getting in on percentage after beating Port Adelaide in the final round. Now, bear in mind there was a few Carlton supporters, so the jury was a bit lopsided. But I actually think Port Adelaide would win that last game. I think Port Adelaide would make 8th spot, but then bow out in similar fashion to Essendon 2009 and North Melbourne of 2012.
Question number 5. Where do you expect your respective VFL team to finish at the end of this season? Prosecutor.
We currently sit 10th at the moment. However, we have a fantastic run home where we have, from memory, we have 9th, 11th, 12th and 4th. So, and we're only a winning percentage outside of the 8th. So I'd say we're a fair chance of sneaking in there for that 8th spot. We have a good team, however, we just haven't really been performing to that potential. So if we pull our finger out, I'd say it's a real possibility for the Essendon VFL team. Okay,
Magpie Girl. Collingwood's currently sitting 7th on 8 wins and a percentage of 105.49. Do you think they'll improve on that before the end of the home and away season?
Yes, definitely. They've got trade draft there every week, cheering them on. And we'll definitely make the finals, which is really great after so many years of not doing very well. It's been really exciting watching the VFL team this year, and they're doing really well.
You've been getting to games, yeah?
I have been getting to a few. I've been having a few nostalgic trips to Victoria Park. And, they've had a lot of the former AFL players playing, and it's great to see, Didak and Cracker and that running around every now and then. But, yeah, look, it's been really exciting to watch them, and I think it'll be terrific to see them in the finals this year, and I hope that, they can get through to the 2nd or 3rd round, and who knows after that.
Fantastic. Well, if Prosecutor's right and Essendon sneak into the 8 and Collingwood miss out just to the outside of the 4, then maybe our two teams might play in the first round of the finals, and that'd certainly be cracking to see.
Oh, it'd be great to go down to either Victoria. I'll probably be Victoria Park. Oh, it's never great to go to Victoria Park as an Essendon supporter, but it'd be really great to see one of those classic final games at one of those traditional venues. So hopefully that results go that way and we can face off again in round 1 of the finals in the VFL.
Fantastic. All right, so the last question for our quick questions. Now, Tom Bell-Chambers, we spoke about him earlier. He's a very strong young ruckman. One word, Prosecutor, will he stay or will he go?
Stay.
He'll stay with Essendon, you think? Okay, Magpie Girl. One word. If he went, do you think we'd take him at Collingwood? Do you think we need a ruckman next season, another ruckman next season, or do you think we'd pass?
You can't ask me a question like that and get a one-word answer.
Do your finest.
I think if he were available, we'd try and get him because our two. Jolly and Hudson are heading towards the end of their careers, and Witts and Grundy are still a bit inexperienced. He sounds like a really valuable player to have in the team, someone who can ruck well and kick goals. So he could work really well for us.
Okay, well, there's something to look forward to, seeing how that pans out at the end of end of 2013. So look out for that one. Well, we've now reached the end of the podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Prosecutor, for coming and joining us and having a chat about all things Essendon. Certainly wish Essendon supporters and Essendon Football Club well in the upcoming weeks in what happens with the USADA investigation. As I said earlier, this could have happened at any club, and if it happened to Essendon, it could have happened to any club, and it really is a bad thing to have for football. And look, we do hope that certainly going into 2014 season, it's erased from memory, it's all dealt with, and we can all move on and focus on the game of footy on the field. So, Prosecutor, thank you for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
Are you going to the game on Sunday?
I'm not sure as of yet, but if not, I'll definitely be sitting down and watching it anyway. Hopefully for an Essendon win.
Okay.
So on that note, good luck to both of you. Thanks for having me on as well. And, just not too much luck.
Well, let's just hope it's a really good game.
Yeah, let's hope for football's sake that it's the game that captures the imagination this week and not off-field issues.
Absolutely. So, Magpie Girl, it's been fantastic having you on here as always. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, 76.
Have you had any thoughts about going to the game on Sunday?
I have. I've actually been given a ticket, so I'm really looking forward to it. Actually.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good luck. Enjoy that, and hope your team does well.
So
Okay, so you've been listening to the Collingwood podcast. Thanks for listening. Now, a community service message before we sign off here. The podcast is made by the posters of the Collingwood board and with contributions from opposition posters, and we certainly appreciate those. We do this for everybody's enjoyment who listens. We have a large number of people who contribute with the editing, with the music, coming on and lending their voices, as Magpie Girl and I have done tonight. Feel free to join us any way you wish to contribute. You don't necessarily have to lend your voice. If you want to contribute, either help out on the editing, and MeisterBot does a fantastic job with that, or help out with the music, and DThomas does a wonderful job with that, as I'm sure everybody will agree. Or if you want to join the podcast with your own personal episode, as you hear Trade Draft do every week, and you'll be listening to this, to Trade Draft's rant after I sign off here. So you're most welcome. So put your hand up, come and join the podcast, and everybody's welcome. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Go Pies.
Hello, I'm doing Dave's segment for round 18, where we play the Bombers. And the topic you guys have chosen me to talk about is Brodie Grundy's debut. And well, you all guys know that I'm a massive fan of Brodie Grundy. And I was very, very happy that he debuted against GWS, and I think he showed quite a bit. The things that I liked was that his second effort after the rucks contest were really impressive, where he would knock the ball and go for it after it again, where he would take a mark or just try and push it forward in the right direction. He did that once, I think it was the second or third quarter, where he got the ball in a contested position after the tap. And he got to one of our players and then kicked it to a forward player where we got a goal from it, which that showed a hell of a lot from Grundy. And also, I think it was good in the rucks, his leap, he actually jumps at the ball and taps it down well, though. At times, though, that jump needed a bit more timing in it, but promised there. Also, another good thing was the use of his ball. He used it at 79%, which is very good for a big ruckman, and had it 15 times. Another thing that was really good was his aggressiveness in tackles. When he tackles, you stay tackle. You don't, not like players like Guy Richards. If you remember the 2007 prelim, where basically he tried to tackle Ablett and he just went straight through him, where I'm not sure that would happen to Grundy, so that was a really good sign. He didn't kick on, unfortunately, but that should come in his next game, which should be hopefully against the Bombers, aka drug cheats, but, well, alleged drug cheats. But, well, let's hope he plays against Essendon, so that's really good. So I'll just end my segment now, and you will see it, hopefully listen to it, and it'll be really good, and I'll do mine next week. Bye.